Cap cut. What it do? What it do? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. Food cooking up, smelling good in the house, presents, all that type of stuff. People looking out for each other. It's a beautiful thing. Like I said, Happy Holidays to all, and hopefully you having a good one. Shit, you see what I'm doing? I'm celebrating all day. Shout out to everybody tapping in. When you tap in, like and subscribe. It's your boy Bush. We back at it with another one, holiday special. I'm because hip hop re-entered the billboards. What up? We back on the top 100. Thanks to that boy Pooh Shiesty. FDO. Fuck the ops. I mean, first day out, banging song. Hit the billboard, that motherfucker like 4 minutes long, straight bars flowing. That Memphis flow, motherfucker, is a dangerous flow. It's a people love that Memphis flow. I definitely rock with it too. A lot of people bid it, people ran with it, but who better to spit that Memphis flow than somebody from Memphis like Pooh Shiesty, man? The boy got out and he ain't looked back since. We waiting on that mixtape. But he gave us enough bars to let us know that he back and he back at it. He ain't playing no damn games, bro. Into that, he brought us back to the billboard. That's definitely something to be proud of. Hip hop ain't dead. We coming back. A lot of people stole that flow, but guess what? The original is back at it. Shout out to Memphis. When I was born down in Tennessee, I always got a sense of pride for that. But that FDO, go fuck with it, man. That shit, that's a classic right there. For real. Brought us back to the billboard. Yeah, but I'm here right now to react to some stuff, hip hop history. They always doing they specials on individuals. I respect the channel, but at the same time, they got that AI dude doing the voice and all that type of stuff. So I wish they would have somebody doing the voice and put a picture on it if you really feel like that. But they got a little video about Pooh Shiesty, and they expose a lot of stuff. You know what we do here. We ain't gonna put the stamp on it. Everybody over here innocent until proven guilty. But like I said, before I start this, shout out to Pooh Shiesty, bringing hip hop. Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, all that stuff. That's a Christmas gift for all y'all. The hip hop heads out there, the heads that love that real music. We love R&B too, reggaeton, Afro beats, all that's taken over. But I'm just happy that my boy got us back on them billboards. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. This video is by, like I said, hip hop history. Let's set it all.
Afternoon where the shots flew, and it happened right across the street from the police department.
The federal government just spent millions of taxpayer dollars to keep one Memphis rapper behind bars for 5 years. But here's what's really wild. Even after Pooh Shiesty served his time and walked free, the feds are still watching his every move, waiting for him to slip up so they can drag him right back to that cell. We're talking about a dude who built an empire worth millions, but according to federal prosecutors, he's such a menace to society that they'd rather see him locked away forever than let him enjoy his success. And honestly, when you look at the evidence, you might agree with them. See, this ain't just about some rapper who got caught up. This is about a generational street legend whose own father was running Memphis like a mob boss.
Pop's name is Mob Boss. Your dad named Mob Boss. Damn.
Started his own gang where the initiation requires taking a life and whose crew members are dropping bodies and catching murder charges just to prove their loyalty
Allegedly.
to him. Even now that he's home, the feds are building cases on old incidents, watching him violate parole and preparing to make their move. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the federal government sees Pooh Shiesty as public enemy #1 and why they'll never stop trying to put him back behind bars. Let's break it down. To understand why the feds want Pooh Shiesty locked up so bad, you gotta understand Memphis itself. This ain't just another southern city. Memphis is a breeding ground for the kind of organized crime that keeps federal agents up at night. Memphis sits right at the crossroads of three states, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi, making it the perfect hub for drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, and money laundering operations. The I-55 interstate runs straight through the heart of the city, connecting it to major drug markets in Chicago, New Orleans, and Atlanta. For decades, Memphis has been a critical stop on what law enforcement calls the cocaine highway. But what makes Memphis truly dangerous is its gang structure. Unlike cities where you might have 2 or 3 major sets controlling territory, Memphis has over 102 active gangs operating within a population of just 500,000 people. That means roughly 1 in every 35 residents is affiliated with some kind of criminal organization. The city is divided by railroad tracks that run east to west, creating natural boundaries that gangs have used to establish territories for generations. North Memphis, South Memphis, and East Memphis each have their own power structures, their own codes, and their own wars that have been going on for decades. South Memphis, where Pooh Shiesty comes from, is particularly notorious. This is where legendary figures like Yo Gotti and Young Dolph built their empires, where the murder rate is 7 times higher than the national average, and where children learn to sleep on the floor to avoid stray bullets coming through their windows. The federal government has been studying Memphis gang culture for years, and what they found is terrifying. These ain't just loose affiliations of street dealers. These are sophisticated criminal enterprises with hierarchies, territories, and business models that rival legitimate corporations. When federal agents talk about Memphis, they use terms like urban warfare and domestic terrorism. They've documented gang wars that have lasted for decades with body counts that rival some international conflicts. The violence is so normalized that local news stations have stopped reporting on shootings unless multiple people die. This is the environment that shaped Pooh Shiesty from birth. While kids in other cities might grow up worried about homework and video games, Memphis children learn to identify different gang colors, recognize the sound of different caliber weapons, and understand the unwritten rules that keep you alive in a war zone. Lontrell Williams Sr., better known as Mob Boss, wasn't just another street hustler trying to make ends meet. This dude was Memphis royalty. A certified legend who built an empire that federal investigators are still trying to fully understand decades later. Mob Boss founded Mob Ties Records in the early 2000s, but that label was just the tip of the iceberg. According to federal intelligence reports, he was running a sophisticated criminal organization that controlled drug distribution throughout South Memphis and had connections reaching into Arkansas and Mississippi. The Rebecca Glenn murder case in 2004 gives us a glimpse into just how deep Mob Boss...
If you in Memphis and you got a name called Mob Boss, yeah, that ain't really somebody you really want to play with. I ain't gonna hold you.
Boss's power ran. Rebecca was a popular radio DJ at Q107.5, and according to street sources, she had been refusing to play music from Mob Ties artists, choosing instead to support Yo Gotti and other established Memphis rappers. The official story is that Stanley Andrews, a drunk man looking for his girlfriend, randomly knocked on Rebecca's door and killed her when she got upset about the late-night disturbance. But federal investigators paint a different picture. They believe Rebecca's murder was a calculated hit designed to send a message to anyone who disrespected the Mob Boss brand. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. Stanley Andrews had no prior history of violence, no connection to Rebecca, and no apparent motive for the killing. But he did have connections to people in Mob Boss's circle, and
he had connections to people in Mob Boss's circle. Here we go. Hip-hop history doing that bullshit-ass trap law raw shit. This doesn't mean Pooh Shiesty got nothing to do with this.
Timing of the murder, just weeks after Rebecca had publicly dismissed Mob Ties artists on her radio show, seemed too convenient to be coincidental. What's even more damning is what happened after the murder. Instead of laying low and avoiding any connection to the case, Mob Boss and his girlfriend Marquita Thomas immediately started using Rebecca's stolen credit cards and selling her possessions on the street.
Damn.
This wasn't the behavior of someone who was shocked by a random tragedy. This was someone who knew the murder was coming.
If he knew, I don't know, because really to me in my brain it's like if he knew the murder was coming, why would he do that dumb shit? But who knows? Niggas be doing dumb shit all the time.
And was ready to profit from it.
Oh, hold up. I ain't on my premium. He bugging the fuck out of here. We gotta bring that back. Hold on now. Got to get on the premium. Paying this money. Hey, bugging. We ain't watching no commercials here on Christmas Day. Got me all the way F the F up. But you know what I mean? Like, obviously, this is some put together shit. And then the people that don't want to use they face and their voice, you already know what it is. But I'm gonna just watch it because we gotta monetize this type of shit. We got monitor, not monetize, monitor this shit, watch it.
Pulling credit cards and selling her possessions on the street. This wasn't the behavior of someone who was shocked by a random tragedy. This was someone who knew the murder was coming and was ready to profit from it. The federal charges against mob boss included accessory after the fact of first-degree murder and forgery, but prosecutors believe his actual role was much more significant. They think he ordered the hit, provided the resources to carry it out, and then helped cover it up afterward. But the Rebecca Glenn case was just one example of mob boss's reach. Federal agents have connected him to multiple unsolved murders, dozens of drug trafficking operations, and a net.
Okay. See what I mean? The channel saying federal agents has connected him to all these murders, and they connected him to these murders. Why he ain't in jail then?
Network of corrupt officials who helped protect his organization from law enforcement scrutiny. The 2007 raid on the Porter Street Trap House revealed the scope of mob boss's operation. When Detective Cottrell Robinson and his team executed that search warrant, they weren't just busting a small-time dealer. They were dismantling a major distribution hub that supplied drugs throughout the Mid-South. The scene inside that apartment was like something out of a movie. They found professional-grade scales, equipment for cooking crack cocaine, packaging materials, and enough weapons to arm a small militia. The $10,000 cash in mob boss's pocket wasn't just drug money. It was operating capital for a criminal enterprise that generated millions of dollars in revenue. But what
that name is crazy, mob boss. The Memphis niggas don't be giving a pause. They don't be giving a what? Hold up. They don't really give up.
really caught federal
name mob boss.
attention was the level of security around the operation. The 75-pound pit bull that attacked officers wasn't just a pet. It was a trained guard dog specifically chosen to protect the operation from law enforcement raids. The escape routes, the lookout systems, the communication protocols, everything about the operation showed a level of sophistication that most street dealers never achieved. This is the legacy that Pooh Shiesty inherited. He didn't just grow up around crime. He grew up inside a criminal empire that had been built over decades by one of Memphis's most successful gangsters. While other kids his age were learning multiplication tables and playing video games, Pooh Shiesty was getting a master class in criminal enterprise from one of Memphis's most successful gangsters. His education in the streets started before he could even read properly. By age 8, Pooh Shiesty was traveling with his father to shows, studio sessions, and business meetings. But these weren't just music industry events. They were opportunities for mob boss to conduct criminal business while maintaining the appearance of legitimate activity. Federal wiretaps from that period reveal conversations where mob boss discussed drug shipments, territory disputes, and personnel issues while his young son played nearby. Investigators believe Pooh Shiesty was absorbing lessons about organization, loyalty, and violence that would shape his entire worldview. The first sign that these lessons were taking hold came when Pooh Shiesty was just 11 years old. That's when he caught his first robbery charge. An incident that federal prosecutors now see as the beginning of a criminal career that would span decades. Details about that first arrest are sealed because Pooh Shiesty was a minor, but sources close to the case say it involved a planned robbery of another student at his middle school. This wasn't some playground fight that got out of hand. This was a calculated crime that showed Pooh Shiesty had already internalized his father's lessons.
See, this is what happens when you let AI take over. That's what it looked like to me.
About taking what you want through violence and intimidation. The same year, school officials expelled Pooh Shiesty for allegedly bringing a gun to campus. While he's always denied having...
At 11? Damn. He had that thing on him at 11 years old.
A weapon at school. The incident shows that even as a child, he was already developing a reputation for violence that made administrators nervous. His second arrest came at age 14, and while the details remain sealed, federal investigators believe it was connected to drug trafficking activities. By this point, Pooh Shiesty wasn't just observing his father's criminal empire, he was actively participating in it. The federal government has spent years trying to piece together Pooh Shiesty's juvenile record, and what they've found is a pattern of escalating criminal behavior that started in elementary school and continued through his teenage years. Each arrest, each expulsion, each violent incident was building toward the criminal mastermind he would eventually become. But perhaps the most important lesson Pooh Shiesty learned during this period was about loyalty and betrayal.
My nigga has to be big as hell. He get the oversized hats.
Watched his father navigate the treacherous world of Memphis street politics, forming alliances and eliminating enemies with equal ruthlessness. He learned that in the criminal world, loyalty is everything, and disloyalty is punishable by death. These early experiences also taught Pooh Shiesty about the importance of maintaining multiple revenue streams. His father wasn't just a drug dealer or just a record label owner. He was both, using each enterprise to support and legitimize the other. This lesson would prove crucial when Pooh Shiesty later built his own empire combining music and criminal activity. The move to Texas when Pooh Shiesty was in his early teens was supposed to break this cycle of criminal education. His mother hoped that removing him from Memphis would give him a chance to develop normally, away from his father's influence and the violent culture of South Memphis. But federal investigators believe the damage was already done. By the time Pooh Shiesty moved to Pflugerville, Texas, he had already absorbed years of criminal training that would shape his entire approach to life.
Pflugerville, Texas. Damn, that's a name for you. Pflugerville, Texas. They let them things go.
The 2 years in Texas might have slowed his criminal development, but they couldn't erase the foundation that had already been laid. When he returned to Memphis as a teenager, Pooh Shiesty brought with him all the lessons his father had taught him, plus a new understanding of how to operate in different environments. Federal agents believe this combination of Memphis street knowledge and Texas adaptability made him even more dangerous than he would have been if he had never left the city. When Pooh Shiesty returned to Memphis and started high school, he faced a choice that would define the rest of his life. He could try to blend in, focus on his education, and maybe use his father's music industry connections to build a legitimate career. Or he could take everything Mob Boss had taught him and build his own criminal empire from scratch. The decision wasn't really a choice at all. By the time Pooh Shiesty hit Central High School, he was already carrying the weight of his family's reputation. Other students knew who his father was, what kind of power the Williams family wielded, and what happened to people who disrespected that legacy. But Central High School also presented Pooh Shiesty with something he had never experienced before: direct contact with members of rival gangs and criminal organizations. The school drew students from across
the rival gangs at the schools. That's what started, it started with a lot of us in high school. Started with me. They was coming to the school. We was going to their schools, drama. Niggas beating up the teachers.
Memphis, bringing together young people from North Memphis, South Memphis, and East Memphis who might never have interacted otherwise. This mixing of different gang cultures created constant tension. Students would represent their neighborhoods through clothing, hand signs, and social media posts. Fights would break out over perceived disrespect, and those fights would often escalate into larger conflicts involving older gang members and family associates. Federal investigators believe this environment pushed Pooh Shiesty to formalize his own organization as a matter of survival. He couldn't just rely on his father's reputation forever. He needed his own crew, his own territory, and his own source of income and respect. The name Choppa Gang came from the group's preferred weapon of choice. While other Memphis gangs might use handguns or knives, CG members were known for carrying AK-47s, AR-15s, and other high-powered rifles that they called choppas. This wasn't just about firepower, it was about sending a message that CG was more serious, more dangerous, and more willing to escalate conflicts than their rivals. But Choppa Gang was different from traditional Memphis gangs in several important ways. Most street organizations in the city were based on neighborhood loyalty or family connections. CG, on the other hand, was built around personal loyalty to Pooh Shiesty himself. Members didn't just represent South Memphis or the Williams family. They represented Pooh Shiesty's vision of what a criminal
You want to be the gang, you got to sacrifice your life to us.
organization should be. This personal loyalty structure made CG both more flexible and more dangerous than traditional gangs. Members could operate across neighborhood boundaries because their primary allegiance was to Pooh Shiesty rather than to a specific territory. They could recruit from different areas of the city, bringing together the most...
How does AI know so much or you think you know, cap, sensationalizing.
Violent and ambitious young criminals from across Memphis. Federal wiretaps from this period reveal conversations where Pooh Shiesty discussed his vision for CG with potential recruits. He wasn't just offering them a chance to make money or gain protection. He was offering them a chance to be part of something bigger, something that could challenge the established power structures in Memphis. The recruitment process for CG was deliberately selective and brutal. Pooh Shiesty didn't want members who were just looking for easy money or street credibility. He wanted soldiers who were willing to kill and die for the organization, and he developed initiation requirements that would weed out anyone who wasn't completely committed. According to multiple federal sources, the final step in joining CG required new members to commit a murder. This wasn't just about proving their willingness to use violence. It was about creating a blood.
That's the shit people gonna believe. He got no documentary, he didn't find no gang book or no nothing. Nobody, where did he get this from? Did he just make this shit up? You feel me? Did somebody get locked up from Pooh Shiesty's little clique and tell him this? No. He just made all that shit up, though.
Bond that would make betrayal almost impossible. Once someone had killed for CG, they were tied to the organization for life. This initiation requirement served multiple purposes. It eliminated potential informants and undercover agents who wouldn't be willing to commit murder. It created a shared sense of guilt and complicity that made members less likely to cooperate with law enforcement. And it established a culture of extreme violence that would become CG's calling card throughout Memphis. Federal investigators have documented at least a dozen murders that they believe were CG initiation killings. These weren't random acts of violence. They were carefully planned executions designed to test new members while also eliminating rivals and sending messages to other criminal organizations. The sophistication of CG's organizational structure impressed even experienced federal agents. Unlike traditional street gangs that might have loose hierarchies and informal rules, CG operated more like a military unit or a corporation. There were clear chains of command, specific roles and responsibilities, and detailed protocols for everything from drug distribution to conflict resolution. The story of White Grape represents everything that's wrong with Pooh Shiesty's influence over young people. And it's a case that federal prosecutors return to again and again when they want to demonstrate why he's too dangerous to remain free. Kenny, better known as White Grape, wasn't some random white kid trying to play gangster. He grew up in the same South Memphis neighborhoods as the rest of CG, faced the same poverty and violence, and earned his stripes through the same brutal initiation process that every other member went through. But being the only white member of a predominantly black gang made White Grape a target in ways that other CG members never experienced. Rival gangs saw him as an easy mark, assuming that his race made him soft or that CG wouldn't retaliate as hard for attacks on their white members. This assumption proved to be dangerously wrong. White Grape was one of CG's most violent members, participating in multiple shootings and earning a reputation for being willing to do whatever it took to prove his loyalty to Pooh Shiesty and the organization. The incident that led to his expulsion from CG happened during what should have been a routine drug transaction. White Grape was meeting with some out-of-town buyers who wanted to purchase a significant quantity of product. The deal was set up through intermediaries, and White Grape had no reason to suspect that anything would go wrong. But when the buyers arrived, they came with more than just money. According to witness statements, they had planned from the beginning to rob White Grape, taking both his drugs and his weapon. They saw him as an easy target, a white boy playing in a black man's game who probably wouldn't fight back effectively. The robbery itself was brutal and humiliating. The buyers not only took White Grape's gun and drugs, but they also beat him severely and posted videos of the incident on social media. Within hours, the footage was circulating throughout Memphis, showing one of CG's members being victimized and disrespected. For Pooh Shiesty, this wasn't just about the loss of drugs or weapons. It was about respect and reputation. CG had built its power on the fear that other criminals felt when they heard the organization's name. If word got out that CG members could be robbed and beaten without consequences, it would undermine everything the organization had worked to build. The decision to expel White Grape wasn't made lightly. Federal wiretaps reveal that Pooh Shiesty agonized over the choice, knowing that White Grape had been a loyal soldier who had proven himself in multiple dangerous situations. But the rules of CG were clear. Members who brought shame or weakness to the organization had to be cut loose. White Grape's reaction to his expulsion reveals the psychological hold that Pooh Shiesty had over his followers. Instead of accepting the decision and trying to move on with his life, White Grape became obsessed with proving that he was still worthy of CG membership. He spent weeks tracking down the people who had robbed him, gathering intelligence about their movements, and planning his revenge. This wasn't just about getting his property back. It was about demonstrating to Pooh Shiesty that he was still the same violent, loyal soldier who deserved to be part of the organization. The murder in Byhalia, Mississippi was the culmination of this obsession. When White Grape realized that the buyers were trying to pay him with counterfeit money, he saw it as the perfect opportunity to prove his worth.
They
In
trying
his
to play you,
mind,
White
killing
Grape.
these disrespectful outsiders would show Pooh Shiesty that he was still CG material. But the tragic irony is that Pooh Shiesty never asked for this proof. By the time White Grape committed the murder, he was already out of the organization and out of Pooh Shiesty's thoughts. The killing was a desperate attempt to regain something that was already lost forever. Federal prosecutors use White Grape's case to illustrate the lasting psychological damage that Pooh Shiesty inflicts on his followers. Even after being rejected by CG.
So let me get this right. This is Shiesty's fault that this little nigga wanted to go and crash out. That's Pooh Shiesty's fault. Come on, hip hop history, man. Come on, man. Y'all gotta do better than that. Shit don't got nothing to do with home.
White Grape was still willing to throw his life away for a chance to get back in Pooh Shiesty's good graces. That level of psychological control, prosecutors argue, makes Pooh Shiesty more dangerous than traditional gang leaders who rely primarily on fear and intimidation. The case also demonstrates how Pooh Shiesty's influence extends beyond his immediate circle. White Grape's murder victim was an innocent person who had no connection to Memphis gang politics. He died simply because he happened to be in the wrong place when one of Pooh Shiesty's former followers was trying to prove his loyalty. White Grape's story is tragic, but it's far from unique. Federal investigators have documented dozens of cases where young men have destroyed their lives trying to prove their loyalty to Pooh Shiesty and Choppa Gang. Each case represents not just the individual tragedy, but evidence of the systematic way that CG recruits, indoctrinates, and ultimately destroys the young people who fall under its influence. Choppa Gang Hank's case is particularly disturbing because it shows how CG's culture of violence can lead to completely innocent people being victimized. Hank was one of Pooh Shiesty's most trusted lieutenants, known for his willingness to handle the organization's most dangerous assignments without question. The shooting that landed Hank in prison happened during what federal investigators believe was a planned retaliation against a rival gang. CG had been involved in an ongoing conflict with another Memphis organization, and tensions had been escalating for weeks. According to wiretap evidence, Pooh Shiesty had given orders for his soldiers to handle the situation with their rivals. But when Hank and his associates went looking for their targets, they made a fatal mistake. The car they shot up contained people who had no connection to the rival gang. They were just innocent citizens who happened to be driving a similar vehicle in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. The victim, who was paralyzed in the shooting, was a working father of 3 who had never been involved in gang activity. He was simply driving home from his job when Hank's bullets shattered his spine and changed his life forever. The man will never walk again, never be able to work to support his family, and will require constant medical care for the rest of his life. Federal prosecutors argue that this kind of mistaken identity shooting is inevitable when you have an organization like CG that prioritizes violence over accuracy. They point to Hank's case as evidence that Pooh Shiesty's influence creates a culture where innocent people are routinely victimized by soldiers who are more concerned with proving their loyalty than with making sure they're targeting the right people. But perhaps the most shocking case involves Choppa Gang WAP, who federal agents identify as Pooh Shiesty's primary enforcer and the person responsible for carrying out the organization's most serious violent crimes. WAP's criminal history reads...
Maybe this page is ran by the feds too. They keep saying what the federal agents say.
like a horror movie. Federal investigators believe he's responsible for
what they believe.
At least 5 murders, dozens of shootings, and countless acts of intimidation and violence on
The federal agents believe that. Why they ain't in jail?
behalf of CG. Unlike other gang members who might specialize in drug dealing or robbery, WAP was purely a killer. His only job was to eliminate threats to the organization and send messages to rivals. The murder case that finally brought WAP down involved the execution-style killing of a rival gang member who had been talking about retaliating against CG. According to witness testimony, WAP tracked the victim for weeks, learning his routines and identifying the best opportunity to strike. The actual murder was carried out with military precision. WAP waited until the victim was alone and vulnerable, then approached him from behind and shot him multiple times in the head. Security cameras captured the entire incident, showing WAP calmly walking away from the scene as if nothing had happened. But what makes WAP's case even more disturbing is what happened after his arrest. The Memphis Police Department's paperwork error that led to his accidental release wasn't just a bureaucratic mistake. Federal agents believe it was the result of corruption within the local law enforcement system. CG had been working for years to develop sources within Memphis PD, offering bribes and other incentives to officers who could provide information about investigations or help with legal problems. Federal investigators suspect that WAP's release was orchestrated by corrupt officers who were being paid by the organization. The fact that WAP is still on the run more than a year after his escape demonstrates the sophisticated support network that CG has built throughout the Mid-South. Federal agents believe the organization has safe houses in multiple states, corrupt officials who can provide false identification documents, and a network of associates who are willing to risk their own freedom to help wanted CG members evade capture. But what's most concerning to federal law enforcement is the intelligence suggesting that WAP is still taking orders from Pooh Shiesty. Wiretap evidence indicates that even while trying to maintain his public image as a reformed rapper, Pooh Shiesty has been coordinating WAP's movements and potentially ordering new acts of violence. This ongoing relationship between Pooh Shiesty and his fugitive enforcer is exactly why federal prosecutors argue that he can never be trusted to live peacefully in society. They believe that as long as Pooh Shiesty is free, he will continue to coordinate criminal activity.
Parents believe this, huh? This platform is bugging. It's a stretch.
Through loyal soldiers like WAP.
The boy is free right now,
making him responsible for every crime they commit in his name. The federal government has offered a substantial reward for information leading to WAP's capture, but so far, no one has been willing to come forward. This silence isn't just about fear of retaliation. It's about the deep loyalty that CG members feel toward their organization and their leader. The music industry infiltration, 2300 to 2730. While Pooh Shiesty was building his criminal empire, he was also developing what would become his most powerful weapon, his music career. But federal investigators argue that his entry into the music industry wasn't an attempt to go legitimate. It was a calculated strategy to expand CG's influence and create new revenue streams for the organization. Pooh Shiesty's first serious foray into music came in 2018 with the track Breaking News, featuring his childhood friend Big 30. The song was raw, authentic,
I got
and
a
gave
girl on that
listeners a
song
glimpse
too.
into the Memphis street life that most people only heard about in rumors. But what fans didn't realize was that the lyrics weren't just artistic expression. They were detailed confessions of real crimes that CG had committed.
Really?
Federal agents have spent countless hours analyzing Pooh Shiesty's early tracks, cross-referencing his lyrics with unsolved crimes and ongoing investigations. What
Really?
they found was a pattern of musical confessions that provided crucial evidence for multiple criminal cases. In Breaking News, for example, Pooh Shiesty raps about specific shootings, drug deals, and acts of retaliation that investigators were able to match with actual incidents. The song wasn't just entertainment, it was a public announcement of CG's criminal activities, delivered in a format that would reach thousands of potential recruits and intimidate rivals. The success of Breaking News proved to Pooh Shiesty that music could be more than just a side hustle. It could be a powerful tool for building his criminal brand. The song's popularity brought attention to CG from young people across the South who were impressed by the organization's reputation for violence and success. But the real breakthrough came when Gucci Mane reached out to Pooh Shiesty on Instagram. The 1017 Records deal wasn't just a music contract, it was an opportunity to legitimize CG's operations and create a pipeline for laundering criminal proceeds through the music industry.
Breaking news, breaking news. I like that FBO though. That motherfucker. But why he send that shot at Bronny James like that, man? That was fucked up. He said, you ain't a killer, your papa is. You like Bronny James. Damn.
Federal financial investigators have traced millions of dollars in suspicious transactions between CG-affiliated accounts and various music industry entities. They believe Pooh Shiesty was using his record deal, touring income, and merchandise sales to clean money from drug trafficking and other criminal activities. The sophistication of this money laundering operation impressed even experienced federal agents. Instead of using traditional methods like cash-intensive businesses or offshore accounts, Pooh Shiesty was hiding criminal proceeds in plain sight through legitimate music industry transactions. Concert bookings provided perfect cover for drug distribution operations. CG members could travel across state lines with large amounts of cash and drugs, claiming they were part of Pooh Shiesty's touring crew. Local law enforcement agencies were less likely to scrutinize people associated with a legitimate recording artist, giving the organization unprecedented freedom of movement. Studio sessions became meetings where CG leadership could plan criminal activities without fear of surveillance. Recording studios are naturally soundproof and private, making them ideal locations for sensitive conversations about drug shipments, territorial disputes, and violent retaliation. Music videos provided opportunities to display wealth and weapons that would intimidate rivals and attract new recruits. Federal agents have analyzed dozens of CG music videos, documenting the display of illegal firearms, large amounts of cash, and luxury items that were purchased with criminal proceeds. But perhaps most importantly, Pooh Shiesty's music career gave him a platform.
These platforms, man, sound like them people. You gotta be careful on YouTube too. But shout out to Hip Hop History, but some of these platforms is them people.
Formed to spread CG's influence far beyond Memphis. His songs were being played in cities across the country, introducing young people to the Chopper Gang brand and inspiring them to form their own affiliated chapter.
Be fishing for dudes in the comments to go give their 2 cents. Yeah, I seen them doing this and that.
The federal government has documented CG-inspired criminal activity in Atlanta, Houston, Chicago, Miami, and dozens of other cities where Pooh Shiesty's music was popular. Local law enforcement agencies began reporting incidents where young criminals claimed to be representing Chopper Gang, using Pooh Shiesty's lyrics as justification for their actions. This national expansion of CG's influence transformed what had been a local Memphis gang into what federal prosecutors now classify as a multi-state criminal enterprise. The music industry connections that were supposed to provide Pooh Shiesty with a legitimate career path had instead become the vehicle for spreading his criminal organization across the entire country. The collaboration with Lil Durk on Back in Blood represented the peak of this strategy. The song's massive success brought CG's message to a mainstream audience, but it also contained specific references to real criminal activities that federal agents were able to use as evidence in ongoing investigations. When Pooh Shiesty raps, "Yeah, you know who took that shit from you, come get it back in blood," federal investigators believe he's referring to a specific robbery that CG committed against the EBG gang in North Memphis. The song wasn't just a hit record. It was a public taunt directed at his enemies, delivered through a medium that would reach millions of listeners. The 2 incidents that ultimately sent Pooh Shiesty to federal prison reveal everything you need to know about his character and why the government considers him such a persistent threat. These weren't desperate acts by someone who needed money. They were calculated displays of violence by a millionaire who chose crime over legitimate success. The October 2020 Bay Harbor Island shooting shows the level of planning and premeditation that went into Pooh Shiesty's criminal activities. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or a deal gone wrong. Federal prosecutors argue it was a carefully orchestrated robbery that Pooh Shiesty planned from the beginning. The setup began weeks before the actual incident. Pooh Shiesty had rented the green McLaren from 2 local dealers who also sold marijuana and designer sneakers on the side. The initial transaction went smoothly, with Pooh Shiesty paying the rental fee and returning the car without incident. But federal investigators believe Pooh Shiesty was already planning the robbery during that first meeting. He used the legitimate rental transaction to study his targets, learning their routines, identifying their vulnerabilities, and developing a plan to rob them when they least expected it. The decision to arrange a second meeting under the pretense of buying weed and Jordan sneakers was pure manipulation. Pooh Shiesty knew that the dealers would be carrying cash and valuable merchandise, making them perfect targets for a robbery. He also knew that their illegal drug dealing activities would make them reluctant to cooperate with law enforcement afterward.
A lot of these rappers get halfway on, just like the Max B situation. They halfway on, then they do some dumb shit right before it pop off. I'm sure he did this before that song with Durk. do some goofy ass shit.
Surveillance footage from the Bay Harbor Islands parking lot is chilling to watch. You can see Pooh Shiesty arrive in the McLaren, acting casual and friendly as he greets the dealers. But within seconds, his two associates emerge from the vehicle with military-style weapons, immediately opening fire on the unsuspecting victims. The level of violence was completely disproportionate to the situation. The dealers weren't armed, weren't threatening anyone, and were simply trying to complete what they thought was a legitimate business transaction. But Pooh Shiesty's crew shot them anyway, leaving one victim hospitalized with multiple gunshot wounds. What makes the incident even more disturbing is Pooh Shiesty's behavior afterward. Instead of showing any remorse or concern for the victims, he was primarily worried about the Louis Vuitton bag containing $40,000.
What you want him to do? Go out, go brr. He go brr. Nigga. That's what the nigga Vix is what it is. The nigga did it when he wasn't supposed to, though. Nigga, you already on. Nigga, it's over. You gotta drop that.
That his crew had dropped.
Big brr and big burr. See, I can't do that. Brr, or whatever the fuck my girl could do. I can't do it. I could do big brr.
During their escape, federal wiretaps captured him complaining about the lost money and discussing plans to retrieve it from the crime scene. The bag itself became crucial evidence in the federal case. The serial numbers on some of the bills inside matched money that Pooh Shiesty had posted on social media just days before the robbery. This wasn't just circumstantial evidence. It was direct proof that he had been at the scene and involved in the planning. But what really convinced federal prosecutors that Pooh Shiesty was irredeemable was his reaction to being arrested. Instead of accepting responsibility or showing remorse, he immediately began working to intimidate witnesses and obstruct the investigation. Federal agents documented multiple attempts by CG associates to contact the shooting victims, offering them money to change their testimony or threatening them with violence if they cooperated with law enforcement. These witness intimidation efforts were coordinated from the highest levels of the organization, with Pooh Shiesty personally approving the strategy. The King of Diamonds strip club shooting just a few months later proved that Pooh Shiesty had learned nothing from his arrest. If anything, the federal charges seemed to make him more reckless and more willing to resort to violence over minor disputes. The incident began when $40,000 fell out of Pooh Shiesty's pocket while he was making it rain on the dancers. In most situations, losing money at a strip club would just be an expensive lesson about being more careful with your cash. But Pooh Shiesty's street mentality wouldn't allow him to accept that kind of loss. Witnesses describe him becoming increasingly agitated as club patrons scrambled to collect the money from the floor. Instead of laughing off the incident or asking the DJ to make an announcement about returning the cash, Pooh Shiesty began threatening other customers and demanding that security help him recover every dollar. When club security tried to de-escalate the situation by escorting Pooh Shiesty outside, he interpreted their intervention as disrespect. In his mind, the security guards were choosing the side of the people who had taken his money over the famous rapper who was bringing prestige and revenue to their establishment. The decision to pull out a gun and shoot the security guard in the ankle was pure impulse, but it revealed everything about Pooh Shiesty's character. He was willing to...
That sounds like one of them Joe Pesci movies. Yeah, the dance, pop. Nigga, mob shit. His pop named Mob Boss.
Commit attempted murder over $40,000, money that represented less than what he might make from a single concert appearance. Federal prosecutors argue that both Miami incidents demonstrate a pattern of behavior that makes Pooh Shiesty fundamentally unsuitable for life in civilized society. They point out that he committed these crimes while already facing serious legal troubles, while earning millions of dollars from his music career, and while having every opportunity to choose a legitimate path.
He wanted that same respect he get in Memphis when he out in Miami. You in Miami, nigga. They don't know you. They violate.
Forward. The fact that he chose violence anyway, prosecutors argue, proves that no amount of success, money, or legal consequences will ever change his essential nature as a predatory criminal who sees violence as the solution to every problem. When federal prosecutors finally moved against Pooh Shiesty, they brought more than just the Miami charges. They came with a comprehensive strategy designed to dismantle not just his criminal activities, but his entire cultural influence and the organization he had built around his persona. The decision to pursue federal rather than state charges was crucial. Federal prosecutors have resources, jurisdiction, and sentencing guidelines that state courts simply can't match. They can investigate across state lines, use sophisticated surveillance techniques, and impose sentences that effectively remove dangerous criminals from society for decades. But the federal case against Pooh Shiesty was about more than just punishing him for specific crimes. Prosecutors saw him as the head of a criminal enterprise that was corrupting young people across the country and inspiring copycat violence in multiple cities. Their goal was to send a message that fame and fortune wouldn't protect anyone from the consequences of criminal behavior. The prosecution team spent months building their case, gathering evidence not just about the Miami incidents, but about Pooh Shiesty's entire criminal career. They analyzed his music for confessions, traced his financial transactions for evidence of money laundering, and interviewed dozens of witnesses who could testify about CG's criminal activities. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence was Pooh Shiesty's own social media activity. Federal agents had been monitoring his accounts for years, documenting posts that showed him with illegal weapons, large amounts of cash, and known criminals. These posts weren't just evidence of his lifestyle. They were proof of ongoing criminal activity. The government also used sophisticated financial analysis to trace the sources of Pooh Shiesty's wealth. They found evidence that significant portions of his income came from drug trafficking, robbery, and other criminal activities that were being laundered through his music career. This financial evidence was crucial for establishing the scope of his criminal enterprise. But perhaps most damaging was the testimony from former CG members who had decided to cooperate with federal authorities. These witnesses provided insider details about the organization's structure, its initiation requirements, and Pooh Shiesty's role as the ultimate decision maker for all major criminal activities. The cooperating witnesses described a sophisticated criminal organization with clear hierarchies, specific roles and responsibilities, and detailed protocols for everything from drug distribution to conflict resolution. They testified that Pooh Shiesty personally approved major criminal activities and that his word was law within the organization. Federal prosecutors used